I'm joined by a fantastic individual, none other than the great Josip Skoko, great Socceroo. Welcome, Josip, to this conversation.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us, Josip, how did you fall in love with our great game?
How did I fall in love with it? Probably like most other kids, just kicking the ball around the backyard. I grew up in Mount Gambier. I was born there, and had a brother who was only a year younger, so we were at it, all the time in the house, outside the house, in the backyard. And I think it was our dad my dad who introduced us to it. He played for the local Croatian team down there at the time, and that was it. We fell in love with it from day one, I suppose, and yeah, just every minute we could get in the backyard, we were there, kicking the ball into the fence, or tackling each other, or having the usual fights, football fights in the backyard.
Yeah, so I also have a brother with 18 months apart, so that's how my love started as well. So they were the one-on-ones, the backyard one-on-ones, honing those skills. So when did you first play competitive football for a club, and what was that club?
Yeah, so it was Mount Gambier, Croatia. So it was when I was, I think, 5 years old. I started, joined the club. That my dad played at, and yeah, I think back then it was the youngest age group was under tens, and it was like full field. So you can imagine how many touches I was getting each week. So it was a slow start. Let's call it that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got great memories from there. I only played at that club till I was nine. I think I had 4 seasons or so. So still have really fond memories of those good old days. We used to come in early, and I think it was like 9 o'clock kickoff or something, and then spend the whole day at the club with, I think it was the tens, the 13s, the 16s, and then the seniors after that. Full days. So that was our most exciting day of the week for sure. So yeah, that was my first club, and that's how it all sort of kicked off.
That's brilliant. Those I remember the only modification, because we're similar vintage, is the corner used to be taken from the edge of the 18-yard box, and then as you got older, they moved the corner, like a couple of yards back. So, and the big games, obviously, where some teams wouldn't cross the halfway line, depending on how strong or weak the opposition was. So,
Absolutely, and I don't know if they were short corners or whatever back then, but I remember our pitch was massive, and if a team was better, they weren't getting the touch of the ball. And I remember we used to have a thing and I've still got this on tape somewhere. We used to do a sprint at the end. We had some old coach, I can't remember his name. We used to have to do a sprint at the end of training from one corner to the other corner of the pitch, and then at the other end of the corner, like just off the pitch, it was a little club room. It was just a tin shed back then before the proper club rooms were built. And I think there was always a drink waiting for everyone. So that was a sprint. You'd run from one end to the other, and the first one there would just get the first drink because you'd run straight into the change room area. So that run probably took about 5 minutes back then. How small we were, so it was a massive pitch.
fantastic. And so our connection, when did you move to Geelong? Because people know you in Victoria being a North Geelong Warriors stalwart. You played at the club, and later you helped with its administration, etc. At what age did you move down from Mount Gambier to Geelong?
Yeah, so like I said, when I was nine, I finished up there, and the whole family moved to Geelong, and started immediately at North Geelong. Got into the community real quick. Played with most of the boys that I still know today, and worked out with the club later on and all that. So it was sort of a seamless transition, let's say, straight back into the under tens there, and off we went, and made friends really quickly, and yeah, that was it. After that, it was North Geelong.
And you obviously played your senior football in the middle of the park, being the midfield general. Where did you play your junior football? Where did you gravitate to on the pitch?
I was probably pretty similar, but I know back in the early days, in Mount Gambier, and that I remember playing, I think, the last year there as like a last man, like a sweeper, but I ended up being goal scorer, leading goal scorer that year. So I think the level sort of of the league wasn't that great, so I could manage to be at all ends of the park. But yeah, as soon as I come into Geelong, most of the games were, as a midfielder, and I mostly played at the age level, my age level. So, if I did play some games up or whatever, I might play on the side or something. But most of them were probably in midfield.
And so talk to me about, when did you realize that football might be something that you might be good at? Were you making representative sides, or were regional sides, or Victorian state side? Or because I understand later on you got called up to the young Socceroos. So how when you start getting noticed that you're decent at this game?
Yeah, so probably around under 12s or so was the first trials I had for it was the Western Region team at the time. And I think it was for an older age group, and didn't make the team. So I think that was probably one of the things that gave me a bit of a kick up the backside, I suppose, and made me even more determined. And the following year, I made that regional side, and we ended up winning the regionals. And we had guys like Mark Viduka in that team as well. So it was that's how it started. The little regional teams. And from there, state team. I think it was under 13s, the state team, and then that's the under 13s, 14s, 15s made all the Vic state teams and regional teams, and I think it was and still I didn't probably think of it as something that I could do professionally or anything like that. It was still more, all right, I'm good at it, having a lot of fun, going on little trips, enjoying it. But it wasn't until Ron Smith was at the regionals in Adelaide under 15s, and he asked me if I wanted to join him at the Institute of Sport. And it wasn't until I was asked that question that I thought, well, if I'm thinking of doing this seriously, then this is a step I'm going to have to take. So that was the first time when I thought, well, yeah, this is a bit of a turning point for me. It's either I go this way or that way, and I decided to go. So that was when I thought, okay, I'll give it a go.
And had you already made a debut for the senior side at North Geelong yet, or are you still playing reserve or underage football? Where, at what level, when you get that mention to go to the AIS, where are you in your progression at North Geelong?
Yeah, so it was just probably normal age group. Because I was a December born, I always played a year up, sort of thing. Most of them were sort of some boys were a year older, but because I was a late born, I played in that year. So I always played that age group. So before I went to the institute, it was just the junior teams and the state teams. I never trained with the seniors. I can't remember, but I don't think I ever trained with the seniors. At the time, North Geelong were a pretty good side. I ended up going to the institute in I think it was 92 and 92, and I was there 93. And yeah, if you recall, North Geelong were Victorian champions in 1992. So
Yeah.
it was an amazing team, and yeah, it was being 15 that whole year. Previously, I was a junior player, so it didn't really even cross my mind.
Okay.
We were in awe of these guys, and I think the year before, I think in 91, North got promoted also into the Victoria Premier League. So it was a very strong team, and yeah, I was a spectator back in those days, and just happy for the club to be doing well, and that hadn't even crossed my mind, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. The photo of Steve Horvat still holding the cup is still proudly displayed. Young Steve Horvat holding the cup. I think that year when they won the either it was either promotion or VPL, the championship. Yeah, so interesting. You ended up following his footsteps. I think he went to I think he played that Hajduk split as well, didn't he? He also
Yeah,
some,
actually happened at the same time. Well, I went to the institute. He went to Melbourne Knights, and then at the same time, we just happened to both go to Hajduk
yeah,
in middle of 1995. So
yeah,
we virtually went there together. And he was obviously a more senior player, and he started playing in the senior team immediately,
yeah.
whereas I was more a youngster and had to fight my way in the team. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was
that would have been
it came
okay having
together like that.
another Geelong boy to be able to speak, Australian English to have that camaraderie outside of obviously the local Croatian boys.
Absolutely, it was amazing to have him there, and we actually had I think it was Paul Bilkapic on the first preseason we went to with Hajduk, so he was there as well. He didn't end up staying, but there was three of us on that preseason, and it was good to have local boys because getting adjusted to the Croatian way of life, and you have to remember that Croatia this was still wartime in Croatia. It wasn't, when we arrived in 95, the war was still raging here and it didn't end for a couple of months after that. So they were uncertain times. So it was really nice to have someone you could hang out with and do things with.
Hmm. The so you're 15, 16 at the institute, obviously a fantastic finishing school. Do you put it up to that level that helped you understand what a professional footballer may look like, and who were some of the your colleagues there at the institute at that time?
Yeah, look, first of all, I think without that step, it would have been very difficult for us to bridge the gap and to go to Europe. I think, the amount of knowledge we gained. So it wasn't just the learnings, but just the knowledge in terms of what we were taught and our principles more than systems and things. Those 2 years, what we got there, it kept me in good stead for my whole career. And even now we still refer to, whether it's coaching or whether it's talking to my boys or whatever, I still refer to all those principles back then. So that was like a basic building block that time at the institute, and it did show us how it was to be away from home, to have to do things on your own, to train every day. Could you handle it? All the pressure, and we had, all the sports psychology and all the sports trainers and the massages. So it really was a great testing ground for us to know, do we like this? Do we want to do this? And whilst it wasn't, as cutthroat as say being at a club in Europe, it did give us that sort of 70% of what it could be like. And most of us, we loved it, absolutely loved it, playing what you love every day. And obviously we went to school and other things, but as you said, we had a really good generation in that 92 intake, amongst others, Mark Viduka, Craig Moore, John Aloisi, Clem Bolton, Robbie Ennis. We had a whole group who ended up going overseas, but also a lot of National Soccer League players from back in the day. A massive group. So
Mm.
it was a really talented group, and like I said, we had an awesome time. Not just developing as footballers, but as people and living on your own. It sort of really did make us sort of self-sufficient a little bit.
Mm, mm, mm. And before you finish off at the AIS, do you end up playing some senior football at North Geelong?
Not before I went to the institute, so it was 2 years at the.
After the institute, did you?
Yeah. So after the institute, so before I leave the institute topic, Ron Smith was there and Steve O'Connor, just two of our main coaches, and they even today, when I speak to them, you're still learning. So they were just amazing for all of us, and I think that anybody who was there at the institute at the time or went through the programs would say the same for their coaches. Just really top notch. But yeah, after that, I ended up going back to North Geelong. I had a few little bites from some NSL clubs. Decided not to go and stayed in the VPL. So I played for a season and a half at North Geelong. Did some studies at Deakin Uni for architecture while I was there, and I think it was in the second season. I think it was March of the second season. We had the Youth World Cup, so we ended up going away for a month to Qatar and played in that tournament, which was again really good. Got through the group and ended up losing, I think, to Portugal, like in the quarters or something. So amazing experience. We also had some tours to Europe before that, and this was where we started getting known to agents overseas and to clubs overseas. And I think this is where Hajduk first saw me on one of those tours, and same as Mark Viduka and I think John Aloisi was seeing
who was coaching the young Socceroos at that point?
Alej Scheinfeld was the coach back then. Yeah.
And the obviously going away and representing your country, that'd be a massive honor.
Oh, huge. I mean, that's always what you dreamt of, especially with your mates, and because a lot of us, who made the teams were at the institute together, and it was something you used to talk about often late at night. A few of the boys in the rooms chatting about, perhaps being a professional and representing your country and that type of thing. So no, it was a really great experience, and a lot of us went on to represent the senior team as well, and it never changed. It was always exciting going to play for the national team.
In actual fact, the one memory I remember, like if I had to pick one memory of me watching you live, it was in Melbourne, and I'm half Greek, half Hungarian, and so this we were playing Greece in a friendly. I think it was in '96, packed MCG, and a worldly.
2006, just before the World Cup.
Yeah, before the World Cup. That's it.
Last game before we went to the World Cup.
Yeah, yeah, I think it was like 90,000+ people, right? And obviously big Melbourne Greek community. And there was big topic of conversation amongst my Greek relatives and friends, who you're supporting. For me, it was no doubt I was supporting Australia, and I couldn't understand. And just for you to bang that goal in, it was like the way you got onto it and volleyed that ball in. It was just, and the celebration, it was just erupted, and it was a great memory that I have of that goal you scored. So walk me through that.
Certainly a highlight of my career as well, national team wise. Not maybe in terms of performance or anything like that, but first of all, you're playing at home. It's before the World Cup. I think at the time the Greeks were European champions, and you're at the MCG, which is a stadium that you've grown up with all your life, and there's 97,000 there. Your family's sitting there, and then you happen to put one of those in the top corner. When if you tried another 1,000 times, who knows where it would end up. So it was a sweet moment, and I had a phone call during the day. I remember we were at the hotel there somewhere close by, and we just see these rivers of Greeks walking to the ground, like they blocked off all the streets. I mean, it was nuts. I mean, like you said, there's so many Greeks in Melbourne. It was like a European game. The atmosphere was crazy. And anyway, I get a phone call from my brother, and he's asking me, "Oh, where are you playing today? What position?" I don't know, normal, maybe a little bit more forward or something, Weirdest question. I never knew, I sort of didn't think anything of it. I thought he was just asking to be, a bit of conversation. Later on, I find out that him and 7, 8 other mates had me at 17-1 to score the goal. And he describes it like this. He goes, we were celebrating for about 15 minutes, and everyone's looking at us. Well, what are they jumping up and down for after everyone stopped? So,
how much did he have on it?
I'm not sure, but between them all, it was a couple hundred, and they were pretty happy.
17-1. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's almost they always celebrate the payout more than the goal.
Oh, they weren't celebrating me scoring. That's for sure. They were just happy with the payout.
That's great. So so you felt that it was the appearances for the young Socceroos that sort of garnered attention from European clubs, and how's that? How did those approaches made? Did you have an agent at the time, or?
No, not at the time. I had no agent, and these were things I found out later on. I didn't know that these clubs. I mean, you sort of always hear things, but we had a tour to Europe in, I think it was in March, and we played Ajax, and which was a very talented team, and we ended up beating them 3-1. And later on, I found out that there were heaps of scouts, and amongst then some Croatian ones from Hajduk and from Dinamo and all that type of stuff. So it wasn't so much that we knew things then. We did hear things, but we didn't know such and such a club is coming to watch or anything like that. Well, at least I didn't. And yeah, I never had an agent or anything like that. So it was just business as usual. Play as well as you can, and really, going to play in Europe even at that time, it wasn't really something that I was thinking could even happen. I had one of our coaches from at North Geelong, Ivan Rosso, his name was, and he was amazing with all of us, and he kept saying to me, "Oh, I'm going to take you to Hajduk. I've got a really good friend there," and all this thing. And his friend just happened to be Vedran Rožić, who was the president there, and who he became really good mates with when Vedran played in Australia. So that was the little connection that helped me sort of get across the Hajduk. But I never believed the guy. I never thought that would ever happen, until one day it did. So it was a bit of a no real agents involved, just someone who knows someone and someone who trusts someone, and that's how I sort of got my move.
And obviously you're talking about, so Croatia at this time, and unstable, a lot of turmoil. What is that? What were your family thinking of, like, at the time? Do you stay in Australia? Do you go? What are the internal conflicts that are going through your mind?
Well, could I imagine now sending my son over to a country that's in war, and not knowing too much? Okay, we've got some relatives over here and that type of thing, but I don't know if I could be that brave. So, looking back, I take my hat off to my parents for giving me the opportunity to make a decision. And I mean, who were we back then? Youngsters, we had no idea what we were in for. And of course, you're just gonna, you're into it now, and you're sort of making a little bit of a career for yourself. You played for Australia in the Youth World Cup. You've done a few things, and then you sort of say, well, I'll take the next step, and you'd never do. I never would have ever taken that step if I had known more. You have to be naive and just take the leap, because when I got here and the education I've got here in Croatia, and you could speak to many others, and Steve Horvath included, it was an absolute eye opener. And the football was great, but just everything else that went around football, things that the Institute of Sport could never prepare you for. But the good thing was that we did have knowledge, and at the end of the day, that was the main thing that kept taking me forward, I suppose.
So there's I would guess that you would still be seen as the Aussies, even though you could speak the language, you've got the ethnicity, you would still be seen as the outsiders. Was it hard? Did you feel welcomed, or did you have to fight for your position to sort of grind it in? Because I noticed that in terms of your appearance, I mean, Hajduk's playing Champions League at this time, right? So it's a quality squad. So how did you find the having to break into the squad and then edge yourself into the 11?
Well, like I said, I had no idea what to expect when I got there. I started realizing they just played Champions League. They just won the league. They had players like Aljoša Osanović, Igor Stimac. They had an amazing team of players who represent Croatia.
Yep.
At the time. There was 5 or 6 of them, and a lot of good young talents who'd later get sold. And look, I just came in there and said, well, I've got a few years to prove myself, and I've got to get down to work, and started training. And the good thing was there was a whole batch of young boys who were sort of training really hard and on the side a little bit, sometimes with the seniors, sometimes on their own. Doing extra sessions and all that. So it was good for me, because I wasn't just left out. I was sort of with a group of guys who made me feel like I was a local. But like you said, in general, I was an Aussie, and we had the piss taken out of us every single day about how we spoke,
Mm.
what we did, everything. So, which you take it on the chin, and it's all a bit of fun. But it took a little bit to get used to that sort of thing. But
So the accent, the way in which you're talking about your accent of speaking Croatian in relation to how they spoke it, is that
accent, the way that you pronounce words, the endings in Croatian are very difficult, and you get them wrong. And within you open your mouth, and that's it. They know straight away that you're not from there. It doesn't take much, and then that's it. You're gone. And then they take the piss out of you and have a bit of fun. But
yeah,
I mean, that's all part of the process, and part of the process of toughening up.
yeah,
So I think that was I learned probably the most that year,
okay,
the most about, and I worked probably the hardest that year because I wasn't playing a lot of games. And I did, even that year, I went on a dual registration with a local second division side and played about 10 games there. So,
yeah,
the club was putting things into place that could help us along the way and prepare us from, for 6 months or the year after. And I think I ended up still making about 15 first team appearances in that year, which was maybe cup games or lesser games, but nevertheless, it was a good year, a good start for me. And then at the end of that season, a lot of the boys got sold on because they didn't win the league, they didn't play Champions League the next year, and so the team sort of it opened up, the way opened up for us younger boys.
So, but what a factory! Like the mindset is that we're going to produce players, we're going to try and win the league, but if it doesn't make sense economically, we're going to sell players on to regenerate funds for the club. So that whole region produces so many quality players. Is that the mindset of the governance in the club, that they're success, but if not success, I'll move players on? What's happening in the background, because you've spent some time there?
Yeah, look, I don't know about back then. I think back then it was probably more about necessity, where,
Okay.
you're paying players a lot of money. You don't have Champions League football. It's too much to play in the Croatian League alone. And the boys are at a good level, so they can make a lot of money outside. So I think it was more that than an actual plan. But they did have, obviously, succession plans where they knew they'd need the young boys coming through sooner or later.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think back then they were a little bit smarter in terms of that planning and what they needed to do. Because, I mean, like I said, I know that their account, Hajduk's account, was blocked for years. It was wartime. There was all sorts going on, and they had to make things work. And it was a tough time. So I think back then they did really well to keep it all together. But I can't say that now. I can see that a lot of clubs, not just Hajduk, but I think that the clubs who are really well organized and and the ones that have good plans are few and far between. I've got to be honest. I think that a lot of the time it's politics, and the clubs just do what they need to do, or the president who's there at the time. As for long-term planning and all that, it's sometimes becomes secondary. But Croatia's and this region is a great place for players coming through, and there's always players coming through. So sometimes the system becomes less important because of the mentality and
Okay.
the amount of success the region has with producing players.
It's in this time at Hajduk that you get your first senior cap for Australia. Can you walk us through how that moment transpired and the game?
Yeah, it was. I think like late '96. I was hoping to get a call up. There was talks, and I think one of the games that I should have gone to fell through or something. So I think it was. I think there was an actual camp early '97 when Terry Venables just took over. Late Terry Venables now took over, and I got called up for a camp in London. That was my first contact with the Socceroos, and which was amazing. There was guys like Bozza there, and Ned Zelic, and these guys we were looking up to. That we were from the institute days. We were, these were our idols. Some of these guys, and you come in there, and it was just amazing. And then I got a chance. I think it was March '97. There was a friendly in Macedonia, And yeah, got to make the trip out there and came on, I think, the last 10 or 15 minutes. And I think Aurelio Vidmar scored I think it was a header to seal the victory there towards the end. So it was, yeah, very memorable for me, that's for sure.
Yeah. So that I'm sure that feeling of standing in a lineup, listening to the national anthem must, you know, well up emotion to you if you think back to some of those lineups that you stood representing our country. So
It can't not.
anyone.
No, I can't not. Anybody who says they don't feel that, then they shouldn't be there. It's that the emotions are next level, and whether they're emotions for your country, whether they're emotions for yourself or your family, or you being proud or whatever, it's just a great feeling.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The and you obviously had a number of managers in your times, throughout the Australian camp. Anyone that you care to mention that you felt, okay, I really resonate that this person's giving me something different to think about as part of my game?
When you say managers, you mean the national team
The
coaches?
national team managers.
Oh, look, every manager gives you something different, I mean, at the start, it was Terry Venables, and I was still a young professional then, and he was very organized, and he was very clear with his instructions, which I thought was amazing. And, in a couple of days, he'd give you some instructions, and you knew what you needed to do if you were on the pitch. So, it was just great to see that type of thing, that things could be done so quickly. And then, I think after that, I think it was Frank Farina then, after Venables. I think I had Farina, Graham Arnold for a while, and Gus Hiddink. I think they were the coaches that I ended up having, if I'm not mistaken. And look, with Frank gave me my first probably real chance where I was an established player, let's say our first 11 pick, and he was probably the one coach who truly believed in me, that I was good enough to be in there, and so for me that trust was huge. And I suppose they were my really good years anyway, but that he's someone who gave me the nod, and like that was very important to me at the time, getting into that team and establishing myself. And then with Gus Hiddink, it was a bit later on, and Gus didn't have that faith in me. I learned so much from him, from the way he prepared a World Cup squad. Things I liked, things I didn't like that he did, but he was someone who came in and was very organized and knew what he wanted to get done as a coach, and was straight to the point and drilled it into us. And hence we got results, we qualified, and we went further. But in terms of me personally, the style I played wasn't really what he wanted, and I think that's why I didn't end up playing any minutes at the World Cup. But that's football. Some coaches like the way you are, or they need someone like that. Some don't. Some look at it another way. So, in terms of the coaches, that's sort of how I saw them.
What would you say that your greatest attribute was? So you obviously spent a lot of time, you know, being in the bustle of in that midfield, regardless of the club. But if you talked about you play for many clubs, in Europe and then obviously in the Premier League, what were the core attributes you talk about that you had to work on when you in your time that year in Hajduk, that you now you got that sort of taste of professional football, but you need to know what the difference is to grind into a team. But you would have had core attributes growing up as a kid that would have remained the same. What were those things that were Josip Skoko's X factor that made you propel?
Well, I think that my understanding of the game, and it's very hard to sort of talk about yourself in terms of what you think, but this is what I think. I think the understanding and my passing, and especially my passing in behind, was probably what I attributed to my to being my strong part of my game. I mean, I remember coming into Hajduk, and I was playing a little bit higher up, probably like a 10, and I was more around goal. And I remember, getting into a lot of positions and not scoring many goals. And I remember having to go away and really work on my finishing. And that was a part, for about 3 or 4 months. I had an assistant coach take me away all the time, and we worked so hard on finishing. And, I ended up in the second year, I think it was, I ended up scoring like 20 plus goals in all competitions that year. So that was, I suppose, an example of something that I thought I was okay at, but I really playing in a position that got me into goal scoring positions. I then had to sort of really hone in on those skills, the finishing, because, well, for half a season, it just wasn't going. I was missing left, right. And one of the coaches took me under his wing a little bit and said, let's work on this. And things changed quickly. So that was something. But like I said, in terms of across all clubs, I think my biggest strength was, just finding a pass, especially in behind, that killer pass in towards goal.
Yeah.
And, at all my clubs, but especially say at Genk, I really had a lot of assists,
Yeah. And what sparked that move from Hajduk to Genk? Obviously, another, big club in Europe.
Well, yeah, 4.5 years I ended up being at Hajduk, and at Hajduk, it's a difficult club to play at, very difficult. You're always expected to win.
Is it a
There's
heavy
only
shirt?
so much.
Is it a heavy shirt, the Hajduk shirt?
Very heavy. It's not just, we couldn't, if we didn't win a game, we couldn't go out. We couldn't, not out clubbing. You couldn't go out on the street, down into the city. You'd stay home, and we slept at stadiums after games and things like that. It was a very difficult place if you weren't doing well. If you're doing well, you could do whatever you wanted.
Okay.
So, it really does take its toll on you, all those expectations playing at a big club. So, I played there 4.5 years, and I think it was like I was about 23 odd, and yeah, it was time for me, a new challenge, and obviously to take a step forward in my career as well. And I think it was in off season, and obviously I was breaking into the national team at the time, like I was one of the regulars there and that. So I felt like I needed to take a step up, and it was one of the friendly games. We had a game against 1860 Munich in the mid-season break, and we ended up beating them, I think 3 or 4-1 or something. And I had a really good game there. And after that, I had some agent. It wasn't my agent, but I didn't have an agent at the time. I just used a lawyer, and this agent called us up and said, I've got a club in Germany, Wolfsburg, were interested. And, he gave me the terms and all that. And we said, yeah, fine, let's go. And, obviously I got permission from the club, and we went to Germany, and I did a medical and sat in front of the sports director, to sign the contract. And he shows me these terms, and they were nothing like the terms that I was told they were. And what do I do? And we had another
games of football, huh? The fun and games of football, the bait and switch.
Well, yeah. And I had no idea what was going on. But the lawyer I was with, he said, "Look, we've got another option, another club interested. Let's leave it for a couple of days." So we said to them, "Look, we'll think about it over the weekend, and we'll get back to you on Monday with an answer." But this wasn't what we were told. They said, "Fine." So I'd done the medical, done everything. And from up there, we drove straight to a little city just outside Genk, and I'd never heard of the Belgian league or Genk, or really didn't know much about it. But we ended up doing a deal that night with Genk and signing just a little piece of paper. Actually, it was a serviette that we signed. The lawyer that I had with me, he didn't speak anything but Croatian, so I was interpreting for him on my own behalf. And he wrote a few figures on a serviette, and they kicked us out of the room 10 minutes later. And this figure that he put out was way more than what Wolfsburg had to give us for us to do the deal. It was way more. He was just almost messing about. I nearly killed him when they kicked us out. I said, "What are you doing? Do you want to sabotage this?" And we ended up walking back in 10 minutes later with them shaking our hands and saying, "We've got a deal." So
How good's that?
Well, it was surreal. I had a deal at Wolfsburg, and now I was going to Belgium, and it was one of those things. And it's just such a funny story, this, because we flew back the next day, and we weren't happy with the agent who took us there, because he'd obviously lied to us, and we flew back with him, and he was sitting next to us, and we were just at him the whole flight. But he wasn't happy. Obviously, he'd missed out a rather large commission, probably what was owed to us. He probably would have taken,
And
so
he
he
probably
wasn't happy.
wasn't aware that of the bait and switch either, right? So it's not in his interest. He wants to make the deal happen, or was
Oh,
he aware?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, we land in Split, and my lawyer gets a phone call, and he says, "Oh, because I was about to go home or whatever, you've been on the road for a couple of days." And he goes, "Oh, no, no, Genk have already landed in Split. The board's already there, and they want to sign do the deal." So I ended up spending the next 6 hours at the club, fighting with Genk, fighting with my club, trying to get everything sorted. So I don't go into too much detail with what happened, but I ended up,
For the transfer fee,
well,
this is now the argue about the transfer fee. Obviously,
yeah,
you've
well,
agreed to personal terms, but now they're arguing about the transfer fee, right?
no, we actually agreed to the transfer as well, and then they tried to change it, and then
Oh,
there were certain agreements in place with Hajduk that they wanted to, that they said, no, if you don't do this, then we'll sabotage the deal. All sorts, 6 hours worth. So this wasn't until like 3 in the afternoon or something where everything had been ironed out. They'd signed the deal, and then they tell me, okay, go get your bags. We're leaving in 1 hour from the airport. We've got a private jet there. So I had like 45 minutes to an hour to pack my bags and everything, and just
I tail it
leave
out of Hajduk, right?
leave for
That's
Belgium.
it.
Yeah, and the story doesn't end there. I ended up traveling in a private jet. Only ever time I was in a private jet, and amazing experience. But we went straight to the game. They had a game on. Genk had a game, and we watched the game, and they ended up losing, and the coach gets sacked. So the coach that was buying me got sacked. And safe to say that wasn't good for me. So the next day I was told, well, this coach doesn't want you.
Oh,
You're,
wow.
you're going to do a press conference, and that will say that you're going to tell them that you don't want to stay at the club and you want to go back to Hajduk. And
Oh,
in
wow.
the end, the agreement that Hajduk had done with Genk was already signed, sealed, and delivered, so they couldn't renege on it, and I ended up staying. 3 days later, I was on the bench for the first game, which I thought,
I
oh,
don't
you
get
pay all
this.
this
Just
money.
wait, Josip. Why does the coach want or not want? He hasn't even had enough time to sniff whether he likes the way you play. This to me
That's
is
true. That's true. But
absurd, right?
most.
Like,
I mean, I won't speak on behalf of all coaches, but there's a lot of money to be made in football, and everyone brings their own players in.
uh-huh.
So if there's more players there, there's a less of an opportunity for him to bring his own players in and to do the deals that are done in the game.
Oh,
The coach was Johan Boskamp, and I say his name because we crossed paths later in my career again. But put me on the bench. 3 days later, we had a game. I ended up coming on with 15 minutes to go, and we're up 2-1, and I scored within like 10 minutes,
how good.
and we ended up being getting on so well. Amazing, had an amazing relationship with him, and he ended up when I was at Wigan, he ended up then calling me to Stoke. I went on to loan with at Stoke because he was there, so it ended up turning good in the end.
Yeah, that's so bizarre. This the obviously the money in football, the how that generates obviously preferences about footballers happen at every level, right? All the way down the leagues
Absolutely.
and the standard. It's where money's not involved, but when money's involved, then obviously adds another lens to it. It's interesting that you bring that up. You stayed a number of seasons there at Genk. Do you remember your time there fondly?
Oh, it was awesome. It was such a perfect place to be. It wasn't a top tier club,
Yeah.
so it wasn't. You weren't expected to win the title. It was such a difference to Croatia, where the fans were all nice and pleasant. You could walk the streets no matter what, and you were looked after. It was the total opposite of Croatia in terms of that. So it was fantastic for my next step in football. We ended up winning a cup immediately that year. Great celebrations, and then the year after we ended up winning the league when Sasha took over as coach and had an amazing run. winning the league, and then the following year we qualified for Champions League and played Champions League. Against we had Roma, Real Madrid, and Ajax in our group. So
Big clubs.
time there, amazing. Yeah, and the time there was amazing. Like I said, the people were great. That the players I played with were so good, and just Belgium as a footballing country, amazing. Small. You didn't have to be in camp much. Same day game. You just go to the game, you come back. In Croatia, we were in camp for long times, long periods, before the game, after the game. You travel, you'd go away for 3 days. That was all good, but it's just a different type of footballing country. In Croatia in the summer, we'd have to train at 9 in the morning and 7 at night. It was so hot. In Belgium, you trained at 10 and 2 in the middle of summer. So very, very different. But like I said, thoroughly enjoyed my time there, and we had some great success, and it was amazing.
And from a personal experience, what's it like hearing that Champions League anthem? Like now you're standing, whether you're playing AEK Athens or so it was Roma, and what was the other group?
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid. Oh, come on! Like, what's it like hearing that like you're at Bernabeu, you're at Olympiacos Stadium in Athens, or you're at Roma's ground? What's that like?
Look, that's another one. That's another one of those moments. As a kid, you hear that, you hear that music, and then you're just laughing to yourself inside, thinking, "Am I really there?" You know what I mean? And even now, you look back and you think, "Well, was I really there? Did I really live that life? Did I get to that?" And no, it was surreal, but an absolute. It was so enjoyable playing those games because we weren't expected to do anything in those games, and we just went out and so enjoyed that time. It was amazing.
Yeah, just fight, and whatever happens, happens is the underdog, the true underdog mentality. Sometimes it's the pressure expectation of winning is sometimes a little bit heavy when you've got nothing to we've got with less expectations, and everything's a plus. Just even a good performance is a plus.
Yeah, I mean, we were minnows in Europe. I mean, I think the club had played a couple of times we played a couple of rounds in the UEFA Cup the year before after winning the cup, and I think they'd been champions a couple of years before that as well, but they didn't make the Champions League, so they were very, very young in terms of European football, and to qualify. Since then they've qualified a couple of times for the Champions League, but that was the first, and that was huge for. I mean, Genk's got 60,000 people or something. It's such a small place, but very passionate and very well organized. So it was. It
Did you
was
get to swap any jerseys like in any of those games, those Champions League games? Did you get to exchange a shirt or two?
Absolutely, yeah. I did change I didn't end up swapping with anyone at Real Madrid, but yeah, with Roma and with Ajax we did. Yeah, I mean those fun days. I mean, now you look back at your collection with some of the shirts, and it brings back amazing memories.
So have you got them stacked nicely that in a rack or in a box, or do you have to bring them out? What happens now with all the shirts that you've swapped? Or
Well, I did have them nicely stacked, but now that I've they're all no, they're back in Oz, probably in bags somewhere. So because I'm over here now in Croatia, so yeah, I'll have to work on that at some stage.
Maybe a room like a man cave room, put some up, that'd be nice. Yeah. The okay, so but you're now somewhere between 24 and 27. You're emerging as a footballer. You're now well into the life of being a professional. And you then make your move, I think it was to Turkey.
Yep, 2003, ended up going to Genk. Yeah, so I mean that was a strange one. I was, at the time it was already I think 3.5 years at Genk. So again, we'd done really well. I absolutely enjoyed it. I just signed a new contract. I had another I think 3.5 years on my contract, so it wasn't like I needed to leave. I just felt I needed more of a challenge. We'd won the league, the Champions League, we won the cup. I sort of did everything a player could want to do at a club. And I could have stayed there and been comfortable, but I really wanted to go to the UK. I wanted to challenge myself in the UK, you know, and
Right.
actually, but you know, I just didn't have any concrete offers from the UK, and so I had a Turkish manager who kept calling me for a meeting, saying, you know, this club in Turkey, you know, wants your services, and you know, they offer me some money, and it's awesome money, and I say, look, no, I'm not interested. You know, I'm going to go away. I'm waiting for other offers, this and that, and you know, he'll come back in a month and he'll offer me, you know, 20-30% more. You know, after watching more games, and I'd still say, no, I'm not interested, because I mean, I didn't know Turkey, and you know, I had no idea about the league or about the place, so. I went on holidays, and I was still hoping for a move to the UK and or something, you know, one of the other leagues, and just didn't eventuate. And at the end, I sort of went out there and realized that, you know, Turkey, not a bad league, and it was good money, and it was a good place to live in Ankara there. So yeah, I took the leap, and it ended up being an experience, again, a cultural experience there in Turkey. Met a lot of good friends that I have now there, not all Turkish, but you know, I have a good Belgian mate who played there with me at the time. So some, you know, there's other foreigners there. So it was great, and once again, we had when I arrived, Ersin Yanal was the coach, who ended up being the national team coach for a while as well, and we had a really good run, had a great year. We ended up playing. I think they finished high enough before I came, and we ended up then going to the UEFA Cup,
Mm-hmm.
and we went 4 rounds. We ended up beating Lucas Neal's Blackburn, Bresciano's Parma.
Yeah.
We beat Sporting Lisbon, and we ended up losing to the eventual winners, Valencia, in extra time. So we had an amazing European experience there as well. And I ended up being there for 2 years, and yeah, it was a tough league, and certainly challenged me more than Belgium did. You know, I think from Croatia to Belgium was a step up, and then from Belgium to Turkey, a step up again.
Okay. Interesting. And obviously, the money in Turkey, obviously, you said was more than Belgium. So that was the thing enticing you over. But once you got there, you realized that the football was also very fanatical to the Turks there about their football.
Yeah, so that was more going back to the mentality that was in Croatia. You know,
Croatia, yeah.
yes, it wasn't the biggest club, so which was good. So the pressure wasn't really on us, and the fan base wasn't crazy, which really helped. But in terms of the football and the madness, it was just the same or even worse than Croatia. And but you know, since I went through the Croatian experience, I was okay with it there. And
Yeah.
but you know, culturally, and you know, the food was amazing. The weather was good in summer. It was really cold in winter, but all those. It's a Mediterranean country, so a
Yeah.
great place to live. So yeah, again, I thoroughly enjoyed that experience. Very different, but you know,
Weather,
certainly the
perfect weather and perfect food. So that they're the two
yeah,
things you could do worse.
you
So
could do worse. Yeah, but on the other hand, we really did again have coaches who kept us in camp for long times, and
okay.
you know, I already had, you know, my first child, and you know, being away from home started taking its toll a little bit as well. So that was the difficult part of
Did you
being
how much how often would you come back to Australia in this time that you're in Europe? How often would
there.
you come back to Australia?
It depends. It depended. Like in Croatia, there was a mid-season break, so I could come home for Christmas, which was really good. And there wasn't too many national team games around Christmas, so that was always a good time. In Belgium, you know, there was no real time to come back. You know, if you did in the summer, otherwise I might come to Croatia for summer because it was summer and I didn't want to go back to the winter. So that was challenging. And again, Turkey the same. There was no big winter break, so you had to, you know, a lot of times I'd come back in the winter because we had national team games, and then we'd sort of spend
Stay
some
a couple
time
extra days.
down home. Yeah, yeah. So that those sort of things. But yeah, that it was difficult to get back to Oz, and safe to say that all the travel with national team as well, you know, took it out of me, and you know, it's sort of not it's not great to have that from the club's point of view. The clubs don't like that when you have to leave and you're traveling a lot, and you know, I mean, I forgot to mention when I was at Genk, I had a surprise call up for the Olympics, and I think Paul Ocon broke his foot, and a week before, the Olympics,
That's right.
the Sydney Olympics, I got called up, so I ended up going and playing in the Olympics as well while I was there. So
Yeah,
safe to say the club wasn't happy with me because I just signed like a few months before that. So
the that's kind of cool too. Was that the 2000? That's the Sydney Olympics. So
the Olympics, yeah. We ended up
obviously,
playing the opening game against Italy on the MCG as well. So
yeah,
that was
big
it was
Olympics
it was
too. Kathy Freeman. It's in Australia, bumper crowds. It was and obviously now you get the opportunity to call yourself an Olympian as well. They can't take that title off you, so that's
exactly. I mean, the time we spent in Sydney at the Olympic Village, which was short, but that was awesome. Just rubbing shoulders with all the best athletes in the world, and eating there and seeing all these other athletes. It was amazing. That was a good part. But most of us professionals who were at clubs, as soon as we sort of got bundled out of the tournament, we had to leave. So we didn't get the opportunity to spend more than a few days there. So which was a bit disappointing. But we still experienced the Olympics, which was great.
not bad. So, from 5 years old playing, big sided football as a 5 year old in Mount Gambier, only, 20 years later, you're playing in the opening game in the Sydney Olympics. So it's quite a, at 20, you're now 25, I take it.
Yeah, yeah, I was around there, and there's a funny story about that as well. After I think it was after the Olympics. I think actually it was a bit later on. Um, Now that I think of it, yeah, it was. I think after the World Cup and that, I ended up getting the key to the city of Mount Gambier as a special honor. So
That's
yeah, I've got
quality.
the key. I've got
Where's
the
the
key
key?
in
What
one
does
of my
the key?
offices hanging there.
What does the key get you?
Look, I don't really know the benefits, but I did hear Freddie Flintoff talk about it once. He's got the key to his city in the UK, and he said that he gets free beers at the pub and he gets a ride home from the cops at the end of the night. So I'm assuming I could get that in Mount Gambier as well.
You're gonna have to remind those local coppers, hey, they've got the key.
You have to take a
They probably
photo of
won't
it and take
believe
it
you,
around.
Josip. They
Yeah.
probably won't believe you. You'd have to say, look, this is the official key to the city.
I'll have to prove it to him when I'm locked up in the back of the divvy van.
So the the time from Turkey now you eventually get your wish to play at in the UK's top flight. So how does that transpire? And
Yeah, I had a bit of interest from UK, from scouts and things like that when I played at Genk, because I really did want to go into the UK and that. So, and with the national team, we played a lot of national team games in London.
yeah,
So we were always under the microscope. So we were sort of getting a bit better known and that type of thing. So I still had 2 years on my contract at Genk, and we had a coach, Zia Doan, his name was, and he again, I think it was one of those things where he wanted other players in, and he started causing some issues for me in terms of not playing me, things like that. And the actual president at the time was an amazing guy. Really loved him so much. He brought me there, and he was such a nice character, and nobody has ever said a bad word about this president. And somehow I managed to, speak to him and say, look, if this coach doesn't want to play me, you're going to let me go on a free transfer. And I don't know how, but the coach ended up, because they paid a transfer for me, I think €1 million or something. So I don't know how, but that coach, because he didn't really want me or didn't see me, managed to convince the president to let me go as a
on a
free
free.
agent to the UK, because Wigan never would have paid the money that they wanted for me, whatever that is, and him enabling me to go, help me, I suppose, live my dream and play in the Premier League.
It's interesting, when these things like, so you're in a situation where you're not wanted by someone, and again, like uh football is about opinions. What makes one player, you want one player over another player. These are minor attributes right? Maybe defensively stronger, offensively stronger, more of an engine, more of a killer pass. These are sometimes very hard to measure, right? Why
Yeah,
one
and I
player
think
gets ahead over another.
yeah, and I think what you're talking about is football things, whereas I think that probably 90% of the things that happen are not football things. They're like, this coach has a different agenda. He wants to bring players in from the side and he wants to, whatever, make money. I'm not going to go into that, but I think it's more often that
You reckon
than
politics?
football siding. You know what
Okay,
I mean?
all
Or
right.
it could be he wants players that he's comfortable with, that he knows to bring in, and that's fair enough. But that's, I think, more often the case than a coach saying, "Oh, this player's no good." But in the end, he ended up doing me a massive favor,
Yeah.
and getting me to a place where I wanted to go. And without him being like that, it never would have happened.
The Was that a stressful time?
No, it wasn't really stressful. I mean, by that time I was, 29, 30 almost. I'd played a lot of games in my career. I played a lot of football. I wasn't that phased at that time. I did want to leave Turkey. I did think it would be nice to go back to let's call it one of the Western European countries. So I really did want to leave, but it wasn't stressful in that sense.
Okay. You knew
Not
you were going
playing.
to land somewhere. There was enough interest. You knew you were going to land somewhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. That wasn't a problem. I think I was still with the national team. So yeah, yeah, definitely would have found something. I don't think that would have been a problem. But until something happens, you're never 100% sure. You're never calm. But it didn't cause me issues that the coach was making problems for me. Anything like that. I mean, that happens to all players. A lot of players. It's just the way the game is. You can't have a career that's full of ups. There's downs along the way. Ups, for sure.
Mm, mm, mm. And obviously, so why Wigan? Is they the only ones that made the offer, or and who were some of the other
Yeah,
teammates in the time?
there was interest, but I mean, you can talk about interest, but until someone puts a concrete offer on the table, it all means nothing. I mean, I remember my Hajduk days. I spoke to agents so often. I had clubs, so many different clubs, but it was all just talk. Until someone puts it in front of you, you can't really make the decision to sign. So this was a concrete offer. I knew that they wanted me. Probably not. I knew that probably wasn't going to be, somewhere where I'm going to just slip into the first team and play, because we're going to just been promoted. They had an outstanding year, championship. They got promoted to the Premier League, first time in history, and I just wanted to be part of that. I just wanted to be part of that experience, and for me that was the greatest challenge. Being part of a league that I'd watched all my life and looked up to, and so for me, I didn't have an issue being part of that squad and not playing, or playing little bit parts of that. So yeah, absolutely, I was ready for that move, and grabbed it.
The what grounds do you remember most fondly? Let's say playing away. So which stadiums do you think? Okay, I'm now at insert stadium name.
Well, it was funny because the first year I didn't play that much, because that was World Cup qualifying year, and we went away with the national team a lot, and I missed bits and pieces of the preseason, and Wigan got off to a flyer. I think didn't lose in 10 games, apart from the first game, lost to Chelsea 1-0. 10 games, after 10 games, top of the table, Wigan. So it was very hard for me to get a look in. So that was very difficult. But what did happen was, in that first year, we played a lot of games, cup games, and things like that. But we did, when the Christmas break, the Christmas period comes along, and the team has like 4 games in 8 days or 10 days, it catches up, with the players who are playing. So you get an opportunity. And what ended up happening was, the coach would sort of, well, this is what I think happened. The coach would gauge, where he can get the most points, and where he should put more effort into. And what ended up happening was, away games at Manchester United or at Liverpool, he'd throw a lot of us boys who were fresh in. So we got to play at a lot of these great stadiums, and you know, most of the time we lost, and it wasn't that pleasant experience. But you know, I did get to play at you know, at the Old Trafford and against Liverpool and Newcastle and some of the Chelsea and all these places in that first year especially, and again later on. But they were great experiences. I mean, all those, because of TV and because of Australia England relationship, we used to watch a lot of that you know, a lot of that on TV, and you know, just like seeing Martin Tyler in the hallway when you're rolling up and having a bit of a chat to him, you know, that was, those sort of little anecdotes were, that was amazing, those experiences.
Mm. And your time, did you obviously, when you travel away, those clubs would have the big enough budget for you to room by yourself. But some of the best away trips would be when you get to room with people. So if you think back on your career where you actually, you know, the budgets weren't that good, you had, you know, two in a room. Who were some of your best roomies?
Oh, look, we always roomed. There was
Okay.
no club that we had individual rooms. No, all our clubs. I mean, Wigan wasn't a big club either by any means. It probably didn't even have the facilities of my Turkish club Genk or Genk at the time. It was a club that really progressed really quickly. So it had reasonable facilities, good grounds and things like that, good stadium. So it shared it with a rugby there, but it certainly didn't have the most money in the league, and you know, they didn't overspend on anything. But you know, we were comfortable, and roomies. I mean, like a lot of the roomies I had were you know, guys you'd never heard of, but a lot of them were, you know, either Croatians or people like you know, those sort of foreigners and things at some of these clubs, because you get on better with them. Like I said, in Belgium, I had actually had a Belgian, or two no, it was a Belgian, and it was a couple of foreigners, a Bosnian, a Slovenian. So we used to get on really well. So, you know, sometimes we'd room with them. In Belgium, we never actually went, we never roomed. We only actually ever went into rooms when we played Champions League, or if we had a cup final in Belgium. So you never had to do it.
So always
In
travel.
Croatia,
The country's so small, you just travel to the ground.
no, same day and you come back. So we never did that. And in Croatia, I mean, Steve Horvath was a roomie of mine back in the day at the start. And, you know, I changed a lot of roommates there. And I look, yeah, Wigan as well. It would depend. You know, we didn't have a set one. But, you know, with the
Your
national
room
team, I did have.
messy or clean, loud or quiet. So was your room the messy one or the clean one?
Oh, always clean, always clean. I
Always.
mean, I roomed with the national team with Mark Viduka, and that was, yeah, that was fun and games. We had so much fun, you know. But I was always the organized one, you know. You can ask him about that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you made him put his shoes and boots, pick up his towel, huh? So you were the one.
Actually, probably wasn't so much that. Probably wasn't so much that. It was more just getting him to places on time, you know, not
Okay.
late for meetings and not having to pay for fines and things like that. That was probably the bigger thing.
The talk about, let's say, for example, now the friendships throughout football. Let's say maybe we can talk on the national team. Now with your national team, who are some of the people that you still speak to now? You know, you're on the phone to every month or so.
Well, I suppose it ends up being the people that you're the closest to in terms of where you're located, you know. So, I mean, the boys are all over, and you don't get to catch up all that often with them. I mean, now I'm in Croatia, so I mean, I saw Mark Viduka today. I was in Zagreb, and I caught up with a coffee today. You know, a little catch up, and so I catch up with him quite often now that I'm here.
He owns a coffee
Um,
shop there, doesn't he?
yeah, he runs a little coffee shop up there. I mean, Jelko Kalac was coaching one of my boys here locally last season, so I used to see him quite often. Ante Milicic is in Zagreb, and he's down the coast here quite often, so you know, we get to see. So, like, in terms of that, I see a lot of people. When I was down in Oz, yeah, I caught up, you know, a lot of the time with some of the boys who were down there. So yeah, look, it just depends where I've been, and you know, I think from that '06 and a little bit earlier generation, you know, a lot of us were at the institute together, or had a lot of experiences together. So you know, you put us back in a room, and you know, we're you haven't lost much time in between. You have fun with these guys, and you know
Yeah.
them so well. So it's always so good to catch up with any of the boys. It's amazing.
And you said that it was that time at Wigan that you got loaned out, where the coach didn't want you at one particular point, but then he actually needed you for a short spell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Boskamp was I didn't even know, but he was the coach of Stoke at the time, and this was that 2006 World Cup year, and I wasn't playing, and Paul Jewell said to me, "You want to go play for Stoke?" And I go, "Why would I?" He goes, "Oh, your old coach is there. He's asking for you." And it actually worked out really well because it gave me games prior to the World Cup. It gave me 10 good games prior to the World Cup, and I didn't have to move because Stoke was just in the other direction. I just, I was still didn't have to lift up and leave. So it was a very easy decision to make, and it was a good little experience playing there, and yeah, had me fit and ready for the World Cup, and if I hadn't have done that, maybe I wouldn't have been selected at the World Cup. Who's to know? But that kept me in good form and scored a couple goals there, and kept me sharp. So that was it was a good little experience, and I'm glad I had that bit of a change, and it gave me proper games, in that period.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The the overall experience in England. So would you say that now that you're towards the you're a more mature player, I wouldn't say twilight because you probably could have gone on longer, maybe. Do you now realize that you've made it? You play for your country. At what point do you let the sort of the glories just soak in for a second?
Yeah, that's an interesting one because you're always wanting to become better. You're always sort of pushing yourself. But I mean, I suppose the first time you make some money is one of those moments where you say, "Okay, I've got something behind me," and you can sort of relax a little bit. That's I suppose the first thing when you sign maybe your first contract or whatever. That's definitely okay. I'm a pro now, but definitely that when I got to Wigan, and when I wasn't putting myself under too much pressure to play every week, when I had a chance to sit back and watch a little bit others and see how things work and really soak it in. It was that was when I said, okay, now I've given myself, I've got myself to a position where I played in one of the best leagues, if not the best in the world, and I've proven to myself and others that I can do it. And the story to go with that would have been then when I got loaned out to Stoke. I came back around before the end of the Premier League season, and we were playing the Carling Cup final against Man United. Wasn't involved, but I was away with the team, and after the game, the season had finished, and obviously I was going to the World Cup, and Paul Jewell sat me down and he said, "Look, you're a top professional, blah blah blah. But you're not really in my plans. If you play well at the World Cup, and if you find a new club, look, happy for you to go. I said, yeah, fine. I mean, I didn't end up playing at the World Cup, so I didn't go anywhere. So I ended up staying there, and I think it was that next sort of period where I trained really hard, and I really wanted to prove Paul Jewell wrong because he basically said, I'm not going to use you. You're not what I need. And I just got the head down, trained hard, and he came up to me one day. I think it was about 8 rounds into that year, and he just said, "Look, you've trained so well. I can't not put you in the team this week." And we were playing Man City that game, and I got a start. And first 10 minutes was awesome, and I had a hand in two of the goals. We're up 2-0, 15 minutes in, and I pulled my hammy.
Hmm.
So after all that, fighting my way in, I had to miss a month due to a hamstring injury. And funnily enough, after that, Paul Jewell put me straight back in, and I played the rest of the season. So,
Okay.
through that experience, once again, I proved to myself that I could play at that level, and that I did have the quality to do it.
So maybe it's not that you're there, that you're basking in the glory, even if you're you're traveling away to Stadium Bernabeu, you're at Anfield, because you're always fighting for something, that you're always trying to keep your spot or edge yourself into the team. You're always on that. So that grind, that it's work. Is that a fair summation?
Absolutely, it becomes a bit of a grind, but our mentality back in the day, probably more so than now. We're winners, and whether it's a game with the kids in the backyard, or whether it's your job that you're doing, you want to win, and winning is making sure that you're playing, and whilst I did have times where I was sitting up in the stand and not even in the squad, and not too worried about it, you can't be. I couldn't be like that to say, I'm comfortable with that, and I just kept working as hard as I could to put myself in a position to make it a problem for the coach, and eventually it was enough to start getting some starts and to get some more games. So I went from possibly not being involved more than a handful of games to end up playing almost 50 games there in the Premier League. So for me, whilst I probably could have played more games there, and I was happy that I proved the point to myself, and absolutely loved the experience playing around the Premier League, and then it ended up happening. I think it was that year that I broke into the team. We ended up having a massive relegation battle to stay in the league, and we ended up staying up 2-1. We beat Sheffield United away on the last day, when if we had drawn to them, they would have stayed up and we would have gone down. So even there, we had a cup final.
Celebrations that night.
It was unbelievable. I started on the bench that day, and a guy called David Unsworth, formerly Everton, was sitting next to me on the bench, and he had just come on loan from Sheffield United halfway through the year. And he was someone who took, I think it was roughly 30 penalties in his career and never missed one penalty. Somebody got injured and he came on after half an hour, and I came on about 10 minutes after him. So we were both on the pitch. He ended up scoring the penalty that put Sheffield United, his old club, down. And we ended up with a man down with 30 minutes to go and hanging on for dear life. And so, the celebration was even more so, considering what we had to go through to stay up.
Unbelievable. And you circle back to Split, you to spend some time again at Hajduk. So that was sort of completing the circle.
Yeah, look, it wasn't, I suppose, by plan or anything like that. It was, I'd finished the contract, and I could have gone for a new contract at Wigan, but again, I wasn't playing that much. I was, because that last year Steve Bruce came in, and I got some games, but not as many as I would have liked. So, and I'd work permit issues as well then, because I wasn't with the national team. I'd retired in 2007. So I just sort of said, well, let's go and look for somewhere else. And I had some other sort of offers, but in the end, I decided to come back down. My wife's from Split, and we decided, we had a couple of little kids, and we decided to come back here for 2 years. And actually, it was a totally different experience. But from being a young professional to being the older professional, to ending up playing a couple of years with some players who would end up playing for the Croatian national team at World Cups, and mentoring a couple of youngsters through. It was a really good experience again.
And we ended up with names.
Nikola Kalinic was there. And Strinic, another one, Subasic, the goalkeeper, three of the boys who were in those World Cup squads at the time, all young boys at the time as well. So, it was good. And we actually had a really, really good, solid team, and it was a little bit disappointing we didn't end up winning the league at that time, but not to be. It was such a good experience, and again, so the second time round.
Obviously, those derbies with Zagreb, they'd be huge games.
Yeah, massive, and that second time round, the first time I was there, Dinamo had the upper hand. They were a better team. They played Champions League all the years. Mark Viduka was there at the time. They always had the wood on us. But the second time round, I didn't end up losing. I think in the sixth, I think we lost one cup game to them, but all the others we ended up winning. So we were a really strong team, and that was especially sweet living in Split when you beat Dinamo, and you can do what you like. So that was an especially good time for us, and yeah, we played some really top football back then. And I was enjoying my football and coming back down from the Premiership, which was super fast. It was a bit of a slower pace, but at the same time, I was able to sort of lift the pace of the game a little bit with the boys. I took something from the UK that they had and tried to implement it to play a little bit quicker, which I remember. So yeah, that bit of experience was good to have coming back into Hajduk.
And then, so I remember because I was still am a City supporter, and when in Heart, you ended up signing for Heart, but I think the first or second game he did was he a hammy again? Like you were out for So I remember big fanfare when you signed. It was big press coming back to Melbourne. Obviously, that would have been a club with a shoestring budget, so they would have gone all out to get you in.
Yeah, look, I think that it was tough that first year. They were, they did their best, but John Dinlitzer, the sports director at the time, I met up with, and he sort of, was in charge there, and I thought it was a good fit, and I met John Van Schip here in Split as well, and had a good chat and really liked the way he worked. So, I really did want to, spend some time in Australia again after being away from home for like 16 years. So that was, I suppose, the motivation, and being down there and playing. I never played in the NSL or A-League, so I thought, I wanted the experience, and this was the opportunity for it, I suppose. New club, and they were interested in me, and yeah, I think it was the last friendly game before the season, and I turned my ankle.
So it wasn't hamstring; it was an ankle.
It was an ankle, and it sort of hampered me the whole season. I never really got it right throughout the whole season, but I did. I think at some stage also tear a little a muscle, like a thigh or something, which kept me out for a few games as well. So it wasn't let's say the fairy tale year, but it was another different experience. New club, newly formed club.
Yeah.
Back in Australia, a lot of different challenges again that we had to deal with. Training on footy pitches and things like that out at
the one photo that summarizes, I think, that formation of the club is the rubbish bins, the ice in the rubbish bins. The recycle bins.
The ice baths.
But you got ice bath. It's just in a recycle bin. That those photos are brilliant.
Yeah. It was a very Aussie experience that time at Melbourne Heart. Very Aussie. And why I say that is, we trained on cricket pitches. There was ice baths. A lot of places we didn't do that sort of stuff. So we had but again, good experience. Had players like Aziz Bekic who went on and he's playing, Europe and national team and things like that. There was some good young players there at the time. So, and John Aloisi also finished his career, at the same time as I did there at Heart. So, another good experience, and that was it for me. 35, and I think I'd sort of, whilst I probably could have played on a little bit more, I'd sort of had enough, and I thought it was time for something else.
That was my question. So no longing the guys at North saying, okay, all right, come and just help out, like try and contribute, whatever division they were playing in at the time. You didn't feel like you could go on and play at North, or?
Oh, look, looking back now, I probably could have in terms of that, but I had small kids and I wanted to coach them, and I started getting into the coaching and all that type of stuff. So, I just thought, it's nice to just cut it. If you're not going to do it properly, then it's very difficult to play. If you're not going to train, if you're not going to focus on keeping your body right, when you get on, it becomes difficult. You start getting injured and frustrated and all that type of thing. So yeah, I was really ready for a break from it. after all those years of professional football, and spend some more time with the family, and put something back into the game in terms of coaching at the start.
And obviously, so we touched on off camera. I've been there now a couple of months. What a fantastic football factory in that region of Geelong, producing quality players. Your son who's gone on to do great things in Croatia. I think he's part of the young representative side there. But a lot of quality kids that are coming through that whole catchment area. What is it? Because you're part of that framework. When you sat down to put something back in the game, what were you trying to what were the things that you thought these are the core ingredients that we need to put in to our junior ranks to make sure that we can, make players and give them a chance to become professional?
Look, I think you can look at it two ways, and the one way is to try to organize a club and get it really organized, put systems into place, and really, sort of grind out players. That's one way. But for me, I just finished doing a full-time football role. I didn't really want to do a full-time role. So for me, it was more putting my knowledge back into a group of boys, a few groups of boys, and then bringing generations through. And giving them what I'd received through the institute, through all my experiences. And for me, I thought, whilst I'm doing that. First I did it with my oldest son and took him for 3 or 4 years, and then did it with Noah, my younger son, for another 3 or 4 years. And in that experience again, I went through the coaching experience and some of my coaching licenses and things like that, and got to spend good time with my kids whilst returning something to the game. And as the years went by, obviously I got involved more into the senior part of the club as well, in terms of organization, board, and everything else, from facilities to whatever needed to be done at the club. So, and this wasn't just putting back. This was great experience for me, because, now I can see clubs from every point of view, from on the pitch, from the coaching box, from the stand, from the, president's or the board member's position, from the worker's position, and all different aspects. So it's sort of a unique view. And I don't think too many players have had all of that experience and played football in like 4 or 5 different countries where the cultures are so different. So, that sort of experience that I gained in that, it's given me a lot of good information to put back into the kids coming through.
And one thing that you haven't said that, but it's been throughout the journey of us talking, your resilience, your hard work, you're not seeing is as one attribute that I can garner from this conversation. There's one thing that overarching that I think has propelled you through your journey. What advice do you have when you're speaking to now that 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-old boy or girl wanting to make that transition to that next level? What advice do you have for them?
That's a good one. I'd love to say it's obviously it's hard work, and it's never give up, and follow your dreams, sort of thing. That's one way of looking at it. But at the end of the day, I think if you do put in the work, you're going to get results. And the way that you see results or perceive results is something else. For someone, a result is playing for the local side and being the best in that team. For somebody, it's being a professional and representing the country. We're all a little bit different. But I think hard work is the biggest factor. And if you've got that, I think you can really achieve, and you can be less talented than the others and still achieve. So I think that over sort of rides everything. But along the way, you're going to have things called luck, and things are sometimes going to have to work out for you. Some boys just don't have the luck, they get injured or they turn to other things. It's such a small percentage of footballers make it. I mean, I think it was one of the first things that Ron Smith said to us when we walked into the Institute of Sport. There was 20 of us there, and we were all the best in the country at the time, at that age, because he chose us. And we all thought, we could make something of our careers. And he said, look, 50% of you boys will not even make the Australian under 20 team that we're actually here to prepare for. So, we'd brought in to prepare for that tournament. And he said to us, after about 50% of you guys won't even make that, let alone become professionals at a later date. So he opened our eyes from day one. And I still remember that, we were all there for that reason. And we thought, how can he tell us this? We're here, it's so close, we can touch it. So, it goes to show, there's boys now I see here playing almost playing professionally, maybe not broken into the first team, played for young national teams, such big careers ahead of them. They might be 19 or whatever. And, they may never play professionally properly, and they're so close. So, when people say, oh, this 7-year-old or this 10-year-old, he's going to make it, I mean, there's a long way to go.
Yeah.
So it's, but as long as you've got that work ethic in, that takes you a long way. And especially here in Europe, a lot of the coaches and a lot of people really like the Australian mentality in terms of the way we're sort of brought up and the work ethic. So that's something that you should never disregard as being a strength.
Fantastic words of wisdom, Josip Skoko. Thank you so much for your contribution to Australian football. I'll never forget that goal at the MCG. That's I can still I'm looking, I'm visualizing it now. Going, I was in the nosebleeds, but and the roar of the crowd. For me, that was my personal highlight of your game. And through this conversation, your tenacity to never give up. That's what message that I get for young boys. And in 2024, we had a small cup that we played in. The under 18s boys won the Youth Super Cup, and I'm gonna show them this video that maybe if they work hard and persevere, maybe they too can make a career out of football.
Fantastic. I mean, I look forward to seeing a lot more young boys come out of North Geelong and out of Australia and onto the professional stage. So good luck to them all.